Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Guile Treatment. We have a special guest with us today, Brad from Level 99. Brad, if you want to, I guess, maybe introduce yourself a bit, tell people about Level 99 games, and then we can start talking about Seventh Cross.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Brad Talbot. I am a game publisher, game designer. My best known games are probably Battlecon, Exceed, Pixel Tactics, Millennium Blades, those sorts of things. Level 99 Games is known for creating robust worlds that appear in multiple different games. And so we have properties, we have characters that tend to show up over and over again in different places. And Seventh Cross is the newest of our properties that we were building. So we were really excited to have Jasco decide to put us into UFS with the new Seventh Cross set. And so that's what brings me full circle here to you today to talk about my work and about the properties that we're creating.
Because this is the second UFS set you guys have done, right? You also had the Indian set?
Yes, we did. We did a World of Indian set, and that was just starter decks.
Mm-hmm.
So this new one is going to be a full booster set, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah. I guess I know I've seen a lot of the community, like they're very interested. I mean, they love the art. That's sort of the overwhelming feedback that I've seen, is that the art is awesome, which I don't disagree with. But I know that, people who maybe like didn't see like the Exceed set or aren't familiar with the ongoing projects, like aren't as familiar with the characters or the world. If you were to sort of like fill them in, I mean, anything sort of, I guess the overarching world, and then, for the characters, I guess, that are in the set, kind of who they are, motivations, like anything like that.
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best to fill you in on all the basics. Mm-hmm. So the world of Seventh Cross is a sort of 1930s pulp fiction, early old world and Americana combined sort of property. And it involves traditions of monsters from all over the place, both movie monsters, pulp fiction monsters, classic mythologies. And our main characters are monster hunters in this sort of Bloodborne, Dark Souls-esque world. Mm-hmm. Each person has some sort of monstrous potential inside them, and when they go too far past their limits or are exposed to certain kinds of darker forces, they can transform and they can cast off their mortal form and become monsters. And so that's the main big mechanic in the new UFS set that comes out, is that we have character-driven mechanics where your characters can actually transform mid-game. Mm-hmm. And so we're really excited about that. The world first came about as part of our Exceed fighting card game. So Exceed is a standalone card game with fixed decks. You don't do customization or blind packs. It's just you buy a character and you've got them all, and you master that character as much as you can. So more like the classic fighting game model. Mm-hmm. And in that game, they started off being characters that could transform into a monstrous form halfway through a battle, sort of like your like your beast mode in Bloody Roar almost.
Oh, sure.
And definitely change your strategy halfway through the game.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so that was the first game that came out for this, was Exceed Seventh Cross. So we've brought them to UFS. And these characters will also be appearing in a full adventure game that we're building later this year called Seventh Cross Hunters of the Church. And in that game, you will take on the role of a team of hunters, go into these abandoned or these ancient castles full of monsters across the world, and fight to defeat the darkness in whatever form it appears. Each castle is quite a bit different. But the main thread that holds the whole game together is that you only fight bosses. There are big, giant, raid-style bosses, and that's all you fight. There are no mobs. There are no, jump to clear this pit. All that stuff is out. There's just gigantic bosses that fight intelligently, that you really need to use every resource at your disposal accurately and completely, and really to respect the monsters and what they can do to you in order to win. So it's very much a tactician's sort of adventure game. I'm hoping that it will carve its niche that way.
Right. I noticed that the in the UFS set, it seemed like the main focus was on, I believe it was Empire versus Church from
Yeah.
the Exceed boxes. And I thought that maybe that was sort of like, it felt like those were the characters that were most central to like the storyline, if you will. It seems like, I guess, like the primary struggle, I guess, is like as far as I can tell, the Church is like kind of, as you said, the monster hunters, sort of a like secret society or whatever, and then the Empire is the sort of it sounds like maybe a loose alliance of like some of the demons and monsters that are, I guess, like
so
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so if we're gonna go into like the deep lore of this, this is a story that's about secret societies and the kind of secret hands that have molded the past and the future, and fighting for basically who has control of what the next age of the Earth is going to be. And the Empire in this case is a organization that used magic and monsters and all these dark forces to control the world a few hundred years prior. Okay. The church was founded when one of the nobility of that empire revolted, defeated all of their monsters, and set up the church to sort of, I would say, give Earth back to humanity. And that has been sort of the status quo for the past few centuries. All of the history of the old world has been erased because the church doesn't want people to use magic. They don't want them to know monsters exist, because if you dabble in that stuff, you could become monstrous.
Right.
And so they work really aggressively to suppress all of that knowledge throughout the world. And that's sort of the backstory. The characters that we're concerned with, the ones that are specifically in Seventh Cross, this is the monster hunting division of this organization. And there are 7 different branches. So branch 7 is the monster hunters. Branch 1 is more like the Illuminati politic side of things. And then you have other branches that dabble into history or into magic or into like arcane technologies, that kind of stuff. So these are the secret societies of the world. And at the head of the church, we have characters like the paladin Joffrey, who shows up, and Eugenia, a arcanist who appears. These characters sort of use magic to fight against monsters, but they have either divine magic or they have not evil magic. And there are a lot of different sources of power in this world, and each one sort of draws on a different kind of mystical tradition or even fictional tradition. The Empire, at the side of that, we have characters like Jeanette, the witch, who is the main villain antagonist in the series, or Taisei, who is one of her lieutenants. And those characters use more of a black magic, traditional demonic type of style of power to accomplish their goals. And so they, tap fully into that source of dark magic.
I believe I was talking to one of the guys from Jasco, and I would assume they have some of the background as well. Some of the other characters I know, like I might mess up these pronunciations.
Don't sweat it.
Is it? I think it's like Zolt or Solt.
Zolt.
Is he sort of like an independent like monster hunter, or does he kind of like work with the church as sort of like on a contract?
He was an assassin, a killer for hire, who worked for sort of mafia organizations in this world, because this is a 1930s sort of world. Right. And there's a evil Cthulhu mafia in this setting, of course. So he used to work for them. He got imprisoned by the church. He was captured, and they said, "Well, you're so good at killing monsters. We'll give you a chance. We'll keep you on a short lease, but kill monsters for us now." And so that's sort of where he is at. He is pretty much a criminal, but he's got, as long as he stays on the right side of the law, they're going to turn a blind eye to it because they need the help.
So he's sanctioned.
Yeah, basically.
So he's like Deadpool, but
like the Thunderbolts or something.
Like the Thunderbolts guys.
Yeah,
like those guys. Yeah, that's cool.
And then is it Tornloose?
Tornaloose.
Tornaloose? Okay.
The Tornaloose is connected to Zolt, and is actually Zolt's mentor or teacher, or basically the guy who he used to work for.
Okay.
And he is got connections to the old empire as well, and is an ancient demon who has sort of helped steer the course of the world for hundreds of years.
Okay. Yeah, I that was sort of what I believe they had said is that he was sort of like old empire. He wasn't necessarily like affiliated with the newer, like basically the Janet or Taisei. But
Yeah.
he might have been someone that kind of like survived like the purge that happened earlier.
Basically, yeah. Yeah. There's still a lot of them that survived by dropping their affiliations, by going into hiding, or just by staying out of sight. So he falls in that category.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I guess who else? I guess Selinka and Remulus, they're both I mean, they're different but a little bit similar, right? In that they're kind of like weapons.
Yeah. That's correct. So Selinka is a golem. Was a monster that was captured by the church in ancient times and basically sealed away in a body that they could control. And so if you see the difference between her humanoid form and her monstrous form, and so she's been put into this different body, and she's been given this directive that she believes she is on this path of redemption, and so that's why she works alongside the church, hunting monsters and fighting for them, and she's bound to do that. But if that golem breaks, then she can escape and her true form comes out, and that's the huge shadow gaki beast that you see that devours everything. Remulus is a little bit different. She is actually one of the more Pulp Fiction kind of characters, and I mentioned that we have a lot of Pulp Fiction characters. We have an FBI agent, and there's sort of a Black Ops government subplot to it as well. So, of course, with secret societies, got to get all that in. So Remulus was built by them, and she is basically similar to Selinka, a monstrous creature that has been confined into this certain shape, into a humanoid form, to fight for her masters. And you can see in the art her alternate form, which is basically the blob, where she gets out of that and just starts to expand and consume everything around. So very fun character. I really enjoyed designing both of these and building them up. But Selinka is a main hunter in the storyline. She joins Joffrey and Eugenia and Galdred and Zolt and a couple others that I don't think appear in this set, but appear in the original Seventh Cross Exceed. They fight together on a team. Remulus is actually a mini boss in that game, so she's one of the mid bosses that you fight. Cool. And we have a couple of the mid bosses that were just so cool that we wanted to make them full-fledged characters. I don't know if Minato got into.
He was the biggest.
He's the biggest one.
I guess the people who knew, we shared some of his art around from the Exceed, and people were like, "Oh man, I hope that we get this Minato guy just hit people with cars and buses." But
he's the guy that
phantom planes, trains, and automobiles from hell to destroy enemies. It was such a fun character. So when I originally designed the Red Horizon Exceed set, there was a character. What was his name? I think it was it Constantine? Constantinos? I don't remember. It was the guy who can create duplicates of himself. And he may not be out. He may be in the next Red Horizon set that's coming out. But Jason hadn't fully defined his power set at that point. I said, no, he's got promo cards. I'm not spoiling anything here.
Oh.
He's on a bunch of cards.
Okay.
But I said, we should give him this power, which is to summon, cars. And Jason's like, that power is stupid. We're not going to do that. So I'm like, fine, I'll make my own. And I brought it into this series, and I was designing this series. And I think people have really taken to it.
Yeah. So. I know that was sort of one of the biggest changes from the first Exceed to the second Exceed was, I feel like, the transformations or the Exceed mode. I know in the first season it really just kind of powered you up, whereas in Seventh Cross it's like playing a completely different character.
You basically switch characters mid game. Yeah. And that was one that was sort of the key mechanic of the second season. And so with Exceed, we really want each block to feel like a truly different game.
Mhm.
And so we create some brand new mechanics for each block.
Right.
And the characters being standalone and not having to play cards for their seasons really gives you a lot of latitude to do that.
Mhm.
So with Red Horizon, the first Exceed, we had a really solid foundation. We built some characters. With Season 2, we did that character switching thing, and we added the mechanic of transformations.
Right.
But in Season 3, which is Street Fighter, we actually took all that out. We gave them a critical mechanic, which is more like the B skill from Street 5, and gave them more standard Exceed modes. So those characters are a lot easier to jump into, but they still feel very different from Season 1 or 2. And we've got Season 4 coming out soon, and that's going to feel quite different as well with some of the new mechanics we're putting in.
Okay. Yeah, I do want to talk about that. I know the new Exceed was also like a joint venture with Jasco. I know that I believe the 7th Cross was it Iquis? I think I remember reading that you said originally his ability was like something that you pitched for Sagat of like basically like of striking face up, which I thought was like super cool. Like Sagat basically just like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very Sagat, right?
Yeah.
And we did we tried that with Yaquis, and it was a cool mechanic. So we did it again with Sagat, but in a different way, and using the mechanics that we had in season that we created for Season 3. And so it feels very different, even though the archetype is similar. It's definitely this intimidation type archetype. Being able to do that in different ways in different seasons has been a lot of fun, and I think it keeps the game really fresh as we move forward.
Yeah, because I know I know Dan, he gets like Wild Swing bonuses. So, and for people who don't know what Wild Swing is you just play a card off the top of your deck instead of from your hand, and you have no idea what it is. But Dan gets bonuses because he's Dan, and if
he's willing to spend gauge on a random card. So you have to spend your power meter on this random card that you can't see.
Yeah.
And then Dan gets bonuses for that. And this is an archetype we actually created with Skullman back in the Season 1.
Oh, cool.
And we have a character.
He and Marathi both did it, because I think Marathi, couldn't he look at the top 2 and Wild Swing with one that he wanted?
Yeah, so Marathi was definitely more of like a control sort of economy character, because he could play the card of his deck without looking at or without spending cards from his hand, and he had a lot of control there. Whereas in Season 2, we had a character, Imogene, who did this, and she could actually, like, after playing the card, decide that she didn't like it and throw it away and take a second one at the cost of life, so she could keep cycling through them with her life points. And then in Season 3, Dan just, if he's willing to commit, can do these big knockout hits with the Wild Swing. So there's a lot of different ways that we brought that archetype to life.
Does Dan also have like a little bit of manipulation? I know that like Skullman, if you did certain things, like you could sort of like stack the top of your deck so you like would know what it was.
Yeah, generally all of the Wild Swing focused characters have some kind of manipulation. Dan's is a little bit spottier than other characters.
I gotcha. I mean, that fits Dan's.
Yeah, most of his manipulation is actually things like if your hand is empty, this card gets really good. So he really encourages you to spend all your cards moving, spend all of your cards on buffs, and commit fully to the top card of your deck.
Yeah. I know Chris just picked up the Street Fighter Exceed stuff while he was at UFS Worlds this, like, I guess a week ago.
Yeah, this past weekend.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've played as Sea Viper and Cammy so far, and it plays completely. Like, I never played Exceed before, but it was something that I talked to Rob, and because Seventh Cross kind of got me interested in Exceed, and so I was like, well, I'll pick up Street Fighter stuff because it's kind of UFS kind of related. Well, I guess Seventh Cross is now, but Jasco doesn't have it at their warehouse. But so I picked it up, and I learned in less than 5 minutes how to play the basics of Exceed. So it's a very easy game to get into, but it's very deep because you have to strategize in UFS, you don't have to worry about your depth, your range to your opponent. And in this game, you have to figure out, well, if I get this close to the guy, he's going to be able to swing and hit me hard. So I have to figure out, it's a whole other element of strategy in the game because you have to figure out your movement spaces as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, footsies is definitely part of it, and the extension is a part of it too. Much like UFS, if you throw your whole hand away on a big combo, you're going to be in real trouble when the opponent's turn comes up to retaliate. unless they throw away their hand, losing to your combo. And so that's a real consideration, right? If my opponent is throwing an attack, I might just want to wild swing and not waste a card from my hand, because clearly they're committed to this. They know that that they are playing the card, and there is a bit of an attacker's advantage to it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know. Because I played a bit of BattleCon, but the Exceed definitely seems a little easier to get new people into. Sort of like as Chris talked about, like there is that element of like BattleCon to me is almost like chess, where because you have like effectively like perfect hand knowledge, like there's so much that goes into sort of like the rock paper scissors and like the prediction of like what attack pair are they using, and like all this other stuff. There's almost like this extra level of like analysis paralysis that you don't quite get with Exceed, just because like you have a sense of like what they could have in their hand, but at the same time, like because it's the 30 card decks, like there's always sort of that chance of like maybe they have nothing good, or maybe so
the ability to ignore the odds and play the way you want to play, or to respect the odds and play the way you want to play is a big advantage to Exceed. I think in terms of teachability and pick up and play. And it definitely, like you said, it's more like chess versus, say, poker, or chess versus, say, Magic the Gathering. We really designed Exceed to have this sense of flow, and so that it would appeal to players coming from the CCG side of things. So definitely, like for the people that have played UFS, you feel right at home with Exceed because it has those pieces moving. It feels like a card game.
Yeah,
for sure.
It took me a second to get used to continuous boosts, because my guy I was playing against, Church, he's a fellow UFS player, he was demoing me, and we didn't figure out, continuous boost, you just get to play them, and then, because Sea Viper gets to strike after you play a continuous boost, and you're not normally supposed to, but she's super cool, and she gets to do that, so like
you basically get to cheat all these boosts into play.
Yeah, it's really, then you
definitely feels so degenerate.
Yeah, it does. It does.
We wanted to make you feel like you were cheating, like you're so strong you must be cheating with Sea Viper.
Yeah.
And that's I think that really comes out.
Yeah, it was a lot like and he was Bison was really cool because he got to just dig through his deck for whatever he felt like, because he gets to throw 3 cards from his hand into his gauge. So he did that, and then his next turn he flipped. I was like, oh great, I'm gonna die, but I ended up winning his Cammy, so it doesn't matter because Cammy's awesome. So
Bison's like his actual mechanic is that he gets a lot of gauge, right? So he can use these critical effects, which is the key mechanic. And when he uses the crits, his attacks become safe on block, which is a concept that's kind of hard to do in a lot of card games, but it works really well in Exceed because you do have these exchanges, and you do have like really hard counterattacks that you can throw. And Bison has these abilities that just let him ignore your counterattacks. He can just step back after hitting you, or he can cross you up and you can't hit him back, and it feels a lot like the kind of abusive tactics of a Bison in Street Fighter.
Yeah. I think you've captured with the characters that we played. It really felt like we were playing you just lifted mechanics straight out of the game, and because
we spent a lot of time in the training room when we designed these guys.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
I guess I know you mentioned with the 7th Cross, like the upcoming board game. I know especially for players, who are just like learning about this from like the UFS, obviously they can try out like the characters in Exceed as well. But, if they really fall in love with like some of the stuff, what, with the board game and like anything else, I guess, like what sort of like upcoming projects do you have that, sort of expand upon the world?
So right now we're just working on this board game, which has been in development for like 2 years now. So we're really close.
I've seen a little bit of the design blog there. It's like, version like 40.5. And I'm just like,
yeah. It went all over the place. And some of those games, so we really did like 40 different games to build this one correctly. And some of those games will eventually become their own standalone games. Hopefully we'll go back to them. But for the core experience, we ultimately had to decide. Like, we wanted to have this castle exploration thing, and we wanted to have like these narrative parts that went all over the place. And it ended up just being too much. We needed a focused experience, and we decided that fighting giant monsters was going to be the core experience of the game, and so that's what we focused everything into for the upcoming game. So hopefully there will be some more stuff coming along though, and but I don't have specific plans yet because really I just want to get this one out the door and share it with everybody.
Yeah,
it's been so long.
I know. I've seen like some of the stuff. I know. There was one thing. So I remember reading some of the boss stuff, and you had like something where I guess it was like fully. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think it was something where you said that like the boss fights ended up being like so involved that it kind of like dominated the whole game. So are you saying that you kind of ended up more focused on that then? And I guess that's so. You said you like aren't doing anything with any mobs or
that's pretty much how I played out. We used to have this castle that you would lay out on the table, and you would go through and walk through and fight, and then monsters would appear in that castle and they would chase you around and stuff. And whenever we tried to make the castle exploration fully fledged enough to really be its own game, we had to dumb down the boss fights.
I got
seriously. You. And then whenever we tried to make the bosses more involved, they just took over everything. Like it was just about fighting bosses, and everything else was just whatever. So ultimately we decided, well, let's just take that boss part that we like and let's turn that up to 11 and make that the whole game. And so now everything you do goes into these big boss fights, and the boss, instead of running around a castle to fight you, they just get their own arena, which is specifically designed for them and has their own traps and their own hazards and such forth like that. The bosses run on sort of an intelligent AI. You know what their patterns are, what kind of attacks they can do, and you know generally which ones they do more often.
Right.
But their exact activity order is obscured from you. So I know that my opponent has 2 or 3 of these particular kinds of attacks coming up, but I don't know when or where those attacks are being thrown. So I have to watch out for them or use different skills to reveal some of the upcoming attacks.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a deck building game, and in your deck there are these negative cards. So each time I draw cards, I have to discard any of the curses that I draw. Right. And each curse that I discard, that puts a dot on me. At the start of my next turn, the monster will attack that many times. So you could get to a point where the monster is attacking 4 or 5 times before your next turn comes up. And so the game really scales in terms of the activities of the monster. They don't get a bunch of extra hit points with more players in the field. They get more attacks, which means that the more enemies are out, the more players are out, the more important a cohesive team defense is.
Gotcha.
Like you really have to. Like I have 2 cards. You've got 5 cards. Monster attacking 5 turns before me. I really need you to take aggro and block all those hits so that I don't die, because characters have about 7 hit points in this game, and monsters hit on average for 5 or 6. Okay. So you're probably going to die in 2 hits if you're not careful. These monsters are really lethal.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
Barrett, you got anything? We talked about 7th Cross and UFS, some Exceed stuff. I know I think you were talking about before pre-show. You may have a few questions.
I was obviously mostly interested in the lore stuff because I'm definitely on the side compared to Chris and Rob where I have not been introduced to Exceed or BattleCon or any of those other games, but the first time I was introduced to level 99 in general was just World of Endines, and it's in BattleCon and just effective communication. And so, because I'm also newer to the UFS scene than these two are, I'm the young blood. But I was super interested because I already have fallen in love with the artwork and these creatures and their concepts and where they come from just from seeing these UFS cards. And so then when Rob was able to shoot me the art book stuff that he has and everything else about this board game, and I'm like, man, I'm super excited. So I was really interested into the lore stuff because I wish there was more on the website, because when I first went on the website, I was looking and digging because I'm already falling in love with these characters that I want to play mechanically in the UFS. And I can only imagine that they got those ideas from you at 7th Cross or at level 99, getting this information on what they do thematically. Or what they do in the Exceed system, or what they're going to do in the board game. And so I was super excited to hear about how these characters and how their mechanics overlap.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to design, like from board game to board game. Actually, although we all love the Street Fighter games with Exceed, I really enjoyed doing Red Horizon Exceed because I was able to look at the mechanics in UFS and then try and port those mechanics over to Exceed. It was a lot of fun. With Seventh Cross, designing, what I really enjoyed about building the setting was designing the characters. And I often started with the monster first, and I said, what kind of person, has this monster hiding inside of them? And built my characters based around that. And so we have characters, monsters that come from all over the world. We tried to really make a horror setting that didn't have like just a bunch of vampires and werewolves running around.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are actually two of the monster types you don't see in the game. The closest we get is a Jekyll and Hyde character,
Right.
Galdred, and I
think he has two back page cards, but he wasn't one of the featured characters.
Yeah, he's a fun one, but he is really he's not necessarily what we'd call like the showrunner for the series, right?
Right.
But he's definitely one of the anti-hero type of characters.
Mm-hmm.
So Zold was really fun to design. His monster form, the Hunter of Men, is actually just a more traditional psycho killer type of character.
Yeah.
Sort of like, honestly, I was inspired by Gaston at the end of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh,
sure. When you see like he's the real monster.
Yeah.
In this play, and so I wanted to make a character like that. For others, I was able to draw mythology all around the world. Like we have a Native American character who uses Thunderbird. We also have a Mexican character who is actually like an alien. So you have like an Area 51 Roswell theme going on with that.
I can't remember her name. Renea. Yeah.
We have a character.
That's the government one that he was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The FBI agent.
Yeah, I remember you showed some art of hers in the book. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we tried to make it a kind of unclear whether she was replaced or whether she was a sleeper agent the whole time in the plot, which was really fun. Who else is cool? We have a couple.
I like Eugenia's monster form, the Cheshire Cat.
The Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, I'm a huge Alice in Wonderland fan, so that's that's a really cool thing, and that's like just like this little girl that has like this giant monster cat inside of her, which is pretty cool.
Brad, have you seen some of the UFS like translations? I mean, I don't know if you had kind of like a say over what was like acceptable or not, or if
they send a file to me for review, and I look at the names of the cards and the artwork. I don't look too much at mechanics because that's really their business.
Right.
And I'm also not savvy enough to ever like make a UFS card and understand how it's going to impact the meta. So I don't try too much to
just shoot
to
from
that side of things.
All I know is you shoot from the moon
to make my own. So
Eugenia was pretty interesting. I was kind of unsure how they would translate her into UFS. She's like a pretty hard discard character in Exceed. Mm-hmm. And that's
but like Exceed cards are pretty free, so it's a different kind of archetype in Exceed than it is in UFS.
And and like the amount of discard that she had, like I was just like, there's no way they can have like this level in UFS because it would just be sort of degenerate. And I think they really focused almost more on her kind of like Wonderland type ability where she'll like remove cards from like your opponent's discard pile and then is able to like play abilities on them to sort of like enhance her own attacks.
Okay.
So then that's pretty, it's sort of her like I know once she sort of like starts stealing their cards and then playing them against the opponent. So like they definitely got a little bit of that flavor in there. It's pretty cool. Yeah. I know a lot of people are working real hard trying to figure out how they're going to play her.
The community has definitely placed her at like the higher skill cap just on paper kind of thing.
That's very much in line with her Exceed form too.
I'm very interested in like I can never pronounce them, but obviously Jeffrey or Joffrey. Just because because he's a very control style character where like once per turn, he basically can nullify one of your opponent's entire attacks. But the only way he can do that is by emptying out his hand in the UFS, and so I know that
It's a big gamble, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big gamble, but it's like he can basically nullify a complete attack, and that is incredibly powerful, right? Especially right now in like the UFS team, and so he has one of my favorite symbols in UFS, and so I really think he's going to bring it back, and I'm really excited to try him out. So.
Awesome. Yeah, he looked like he was like when I read that ability, I was like, oh, I know what this is going to do. Yeah, this is serious business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm quite excited. I went. How did they end up doing Jeanette? I'm curious because in Exceed she has a like this kind of remote control where she can place a portal on the field and then attack from range.
Yeah,
it's actually really cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so her portal, I assume it's like her spell circle.
Yeah.
So they made her spell circle an entirely separate card, and at the beginning of the game, she searches for it, and she uses this spell circle as a constant momentum generation, which you use to use strong abilities, essentially. So it itself is a separate card, but she cycles between the portal, whether it's in her remove from game pile or her discard pile, and she always gets it back and can reuse it. And the perk is that if you don't use it, and you keep the momentum, she constantly gets to look at the top card of her deck on your opponent's turn to guarantee like her safety and her defense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's pretty handy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's either like she uses it offensively and like uses it to basically empower all of her attacks, or she chooses to keep it defensively and it has this incredibly strong defense essentially.
Mm-hmm. So, and what about Grimless? So this is an EX character, and I don't think they have anything like that in PFS. So how have they translated Remless?
Remless is she is sort of like probably one of the more reliant on getting like the character stacks, and she has sort of ways to get her character basically like from in like a second copy like from in play to her hand, and then if she can get it back into her card pool, bring it down, and it sort of pumps stats. Like if you can cycle it, you get like +2/+2, which is close to EX. I mean, like +2/+2 is, I guess, like a little more impactful than like, I mean, that thing is an EX attack in Exceed is like huge. Like just getting that extra like 1/1, like +1 to everything. And so, right, for her, she can get like +2/+2 to things. And then she gets like additional abilities when, like when you either play a character, you can draw a card off of her one ability. And then on the other version, once a character ability is added to your staging area, you can ready a foundation. So she sort of just enables you to keep using your pieces.
So sort of the cycling kind of character, because it is a big part of the Exceed character or the EX characters in Exceed. Which when you EX, you play two cards of the same, two copies of the same card,
right?
And you get a big buff. And so characters like that require a lot of cycling, a lot of hand filtering and generation. And so taking that angle with her, I think, makes a lot of sense.
They definitely did that because her biggest mechanic that a lot of people like about her is that if you find another copy of her character, specifically her second form, the Yellow Death, on defense, she can constantly recycle that block and use it over and over and over again as long as your opponent keeps attacking you, which is an incredibly strong piece to have in UFS. And a big offensive piece, because we were talking about for the EX attacks, like instead of it getting like a double, but every time she plays these character cards, she cycles through more cards because she gets to draw more, and then she can not only loop the character card, so she can keep drawing more. But on top of that, her biggest and strongest attack is one where she takes her disadvantage, which is being a 5-hander in UFS. So she sees less cards initially, and she says, if my hand size is less than yours, I can essentially discard 3 cards and burn my opponent for 6 vitality, as well as sending this attack, which is also for 6 damage, which is really strong because burning your opponent's vitality is very hard to cancel in UFS.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, her ultra rare is like a little bit of a sort of a reference to her Exceed form, where like you resolve all the triggers like 3 times.
Is this the nuclear option?
Yeah. And so like that's her. I think it's on consumption. And
consumption. Okay.
And that's what it is if your hand size is lower, you can play the enhance 3 times. Which normally it would only be normally it's restricted to any enhances like once per.
Yeah, right. And tripling up on some of these effects, especially fire is one of her types too, right?
Yeah.
So those can be pretty dangerous. Cool. Well, it sounds like they've done a really awesome job with bringing these guys to life. It definitely sounds like from the kind of vibe I'm getting from you guys that this set is going to slow down UFS a lot. Like it's going to introduce more of a control block type of meta and more of builder types of characters with some of these character abilities that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that are like quick. I know Tornaloose is like because he actually starts stacked. And then basically, I guess he almost sort of like gets weaker as he goes, like because he spends his stacked characters for damage. So unless he has ways to like, I mean, he can get them back with like Gauge, or he can get them back with some of his other abilities that bring a character like immediately back into your staging area. But right, he sort of has this thing where he starts with a lot of potential, and then it's about kind of throughout the game, like managing it so that you don't get sort of like too weak.
And I know
that's in line with his Exceed style as well.
Yeah. And well, I thought for like his lore too for Tornaloose is that like as the fight goes on, he does get stronger and stronger. And I think the way that they incorporated that is so you start off with all the first versions of him, but you eventually, as the game wants to go on, you want to turn them all into his monstrous form. And when you have all of them, he's really hard to stop. So like that's kind of like once you get all the big, he's like a T-Rex thing. I don't know what it is.
That's Bargeist. That's
right,
Black Dog.
Yeah. But once you get those guys out, usually that's when you just start kind of unleashing everything. And he's really quick because he's got 7 hand size as well, so he sees more cards.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, with in Exceed, the way he works is he can transform his normal attacks too. So you have these standard attacks that are unique to or that are the same for everyone. He can actually, when he hits you with them, permanently turn them into a buff that he gets for the rest of the match. So every time he hits you, he gets buffed.
Oh, wow.
And then when he flips over, he starts burning away those buffs for more immediate gains. However, he only has a limited amount of time that he can do that before they all disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's because he can't stack anymore once he's flipped to his alternate side.
Okay, sure.
So you can see how kind of that mechanic was captured in UFS.
That's cool. Yeah, I think they did a really good job.
He was definitely another one where I know, like looking at him, because he was so reliant on the transforms, I was interested to see how they would translate that for UFS. Just because, like, you're really like using a resource that doesn't translate directly, and I think they did like a pretty good job with him as well.
Yeah, they said they put in a lot of gauge type mechanics that they created for this series, just to make it to give it that Exceed feel. Well, the reason I mentioned that it's slowing down is because also in Exceed we felt saw season 2 as being kind of a slow down season where you had these characters that had to build up abilities and that had to manage transformations, whereas in the first season of the game it was kind of like I'm going to fight, I'm going to roll out, play the best moves that I have, try and knock you out quick. This one, you saw a lot more control. And then in Street Fighter Season 3 of Exceed, we've gone back to more of a play off the cuff. The characters like Ryu and C. Viper and Chun-Li, they can really do a lot of things in a turn. And they can really throw out an attack. And they don't have to spend as much time planning. Not that you don't have to be thoughtful about your attacks, but you don't have to set them up for 2 or 3 turns. You can find a move that's going to be opportunistic right now.
Yep.
And whereas the 7th Cross set is really not like that. You have to plan your strategy, how I'm going to use these particular moves to open up into transformations to flow through all of my beats to get my full potential unlocked.
Then I think there's definitely a lot of even just sort of like deck building debate because, I mean, up until this point, like you really maybe had like, 2 or 3 characters that really would run like other copies of stuff. I mean, like Quan Chi, I guess maybe
Heidi,
Ermac, and Heidi, but
and 9, but then and 9 too,
but yeah, like with this, because you sort of have that option, you're like, okay, well, do I run 4 of the stacker? Do I run less? Like, do I want more copies of like the character that I'm starting with, or just like the other versions? So there's like a lot of like choices that sort of go into even just like from a deck building standpoint of like how many you include, like what that does to like the ratios of all the other cards. So like I think a lot of these characters are sort of going to be like a bit of a puzzle that is definitely not going to be like solved like right away.
I think with this, I think what the set definitely does in the generating like this gauge mechanic too. I actually do think the game is going to slow down. I think the game, or I guess there will be more success in control or mid range kind of style of decks, just because they are creating in the set a lot of technical like answers that really beat specific things, and it's not so much about just like, here's your hand, let's play it, like that's kind of been I see like a lot of the more recent sets, I feel like, but this one, because it opens up character stackers in general, not just the set being focused on it, but we have a ton of other characters in the past that do character stacking, but they just never got love and they never got support. And so we have all these cards that already help these characters, these new ones, it's from 7th Cross, but now those old characters are getting help too. And so like there's a character from it's called Mad Perot from Cowboy Bebop, and the fact that you can now search your character cards by hitting your opponent with these strong attacks. You used to play Mad Pro, never playing other copies of him, but his ability is that if he has them all stacked, his attacks are unblockable. But nobody took advantage of that mechanic because it was so difficult to get through your deck fast enough to find those characters. And now that Gauge is a mechanic, we're getting more character card support. But it's like a double-edged sword because this set itself is creating inherent counters to character stackers as well, because that's just the checks and balances of a card game. But I think they're doing a lot of really good things with this set. I think the thematics and the mechanics from these characters, from their lore or from what they do in Exceed, really kind of just fit perfectly into the UFS environment. So
awesome.
Yeah,
it sounds like exciting things are ahead for UFS and for Exceed as well.
I got my first bug, so
I had a buddy of mine message me, and he's already picked up one of the 7th Cross Exceeds. He ordered one the minute after the set was confirmed and all the characters were revealed, and he got pretty excited. So he doesn't even know how to play Exceed yet. I have to teach him how to play it. So we're gonna be playing some 7th Cross Exceed here pretty soon.
Do you know which one he got?
Not offhand, I don't know. Maybe the one with more of the characters from the UFS set, I'd assume.
Okay.
Unless he got I'm hoping he might have picked up the one with Monado in it, because I really want to play him really bad.
I was gonna say that's the one I believe has none of the characters.
There's none of the characters.
Yeah, those guys didn't. Let's see, who's in that box? It's
Monado. But we want Monado for DLC hashtag. We know
Monado Monado did, because he was with Remy which one was he?
Rob has all the
stuff.
He
was with Zolt and Tornaloops and Renea.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yellow. Wait, who's the yellow jumpsuit girl with the black hair?
Let's see. Lucia. So
she's my favorite.
Her card, I love her card, but she's at the end of the set, so she doesn't have any support. But I love her card. I think she's really cool.
Yeah, that was the box that I don't think had any, because it was her, Iquis, like the
Sajin, the character, and
like the merman guy.
Cyrus.
So Barrett, I know, just a little side note. So when you come in for Rockford PTC in July, we'll have a bunch of Exceed to play on Friday night while we're all hanging out at the house. So we can do that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I also promised your buddies that I would play Naruto with them too.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. But no, we'll play Exceed, so we're all good there. So.
Well, speaking of more Exceed,
you said season 4 was coming up.
Yeah, and actually we get onto playtesting every Monday at around this time. So
cool.
So we're gonna go and get onto playtesting Shovel Knight Exceed, which is the next upcoming set.
Ooh, cool.
I know there was the bonus fighter with
single standalone fighter for Shovel Knight, and they like that so much we're gonna go back and do a whole set.
Oh, nice.
All 10 of the night, or all 8 of the knights, plus Enchantress, plus a new Shovel Knight who fights in tandem with Shield Knight. So you have Shovel Knight as your main fighter, and then Shield Knight walks around the stage and just gives you passive defense against everything that's between you and the opponent, or her and the opponent. So so you have that. There's some really cool mechanics that we've got going in this set. Probably my favorite character is Enchantress. Every card she has an X value on it, and X is always your hand size. So you can, but she doesn't draw naturally. She only draws when her hand empties. So you set yourself up for these big power turns where I play my last card, draw full hand, and get to do some huge 7-cost attack or 7-point attack.
Nice.
It's a really fun archetype.
Cool.
But lots of stuff coming up. We're continuing to test it, and it should hopefully be out around the end of this year.
Awesome.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah. Very
I
exciting.
hope we eventually get oh, I'm gonna blank on the name now. It was the first season had like a Juno.
Yeah, Juno.
What was the name of that? It was
So Esper
yes,
X
Esper
was
X.
the season that was another planned universe that we planned to build.
Mhm.
We still have those plans, but because Seventh Cross is taking a little bit longer than we anticipated, we've put all our energy into getting that finished up first.
Oh no, it's reasonable. I'm just saying, like one
Yeah,
day.
I'm looking
One
forward
day.
to bringing that back as well as time goes on. So look out for it.
I really,
Anyway.
I really appreciate the due diligence you do in building your world building, because like, you know, the Indians, they have like their own giant world and their lore, and now Seventh Cross has all this giant lore, and now you have all these other properties that you have like this giant story you can also tell that would be great in like comic book form.
Well, we kind of see Level 99 as, you know, the place we want to be is like, you know, like Blizzard or like Disney or like Marvel, so like a company that is not just building, you know, these big impressive projects, but also kind of building a cohesive universe that ties them all together. And so I say kind of like we want to be like the Blizzard of board games someday, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. It makes total
and
sense.
So that's where we're trying to take it. And that's one reason we do invest so much time and energy into the lore and into the character designs.
It's fantastic. And we love that. We love the backstories for all these characters.
Awesome.
That's why I fell in love, and I bought my player kit the way that they're releasing it. So I have given my support with my wallet. So
awesome. Well, thanks so much. And hey, if it goes well, we might see, you know, Seventh Cross Part 2 and the rest of these characters.
Oh, I'm already in for that because it means we get Donato, so that's fine.
Yeah.
That would certainly be a hope.
Yeah, that's a hope.
So.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep nudging Jason on it. We'll see.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on,
you
Brad.
have like something else that you have coming up, so we won't keep you too long.
Well, I'll tell you about it since we're wrapping up. Yeah. We do play testing for all of our games, and it's open play testing. If you want to play, be part of the future of Exceed, you can just go to our website, click on the very bottom. We have a playtester portal, and you can become a playtester, and you can meet me in real life. Well, okay, in digital life, and I actually get on and talk like I'm talking with you guys to all of our playtesters every week.
Oh, cool.
So it's a chance to get to meet me, and if for those listening at home, if you've heard this and you want to chat with me about game design or something, it's a great way to get in touch. So I hope you'll follow up.
Cool. That's awesome.
And the play testing cards are hilarious. I know I saw the when they had the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air cards.
Oh yeah.
Every card name, and I think they might even had art that had it was all like from like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like the opening song and like other like regular jokes. And
stuff. Those were the early Street Fighter cards. We couldn't reveal that. Our team put those together.
That's cool.
Silly stuff. We've got a good community. We've got a lot of great folks. Awesome. But anyway, I'm gonna go hang out with them, and it's great to hang out with you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brad. We appreciate it.
Y'all take care.
You too. You too. Thanks. Awesome. Any thoughts as we close the episode, guys? Me personally, chatting with Brad gets me even more excited for the set. Like, I know, like I've been talking with some people, and they're not too hyped on the set because they're not seeing things that really draw them to it. Which I was hooked by the art already, so I was in. Like, there's a couple characters that really draw me in, but I'm just talking to Brad, man. This gets me even more hyped for this set.
I think the big thing is like obviously if you're a competitive player, the art won't just be enough to get you in.
That's true.
But now that I think that because they gave us the set so ahead of time, which I think was a really good call by Jatco to giving us the full card set, people can look and see. And like I was talking about Mad Pro just briefly, like this character's gonna play a new game. Like he's gonna be Cannonades are playable. Yeah. Again, Iron Knuckles are nuts in some of these characters.
I don't know if you've caught any of Tim Keefe's streaming. He's been on tabletop every night for like the last.
Oh yeah.
The 7 nights. The 7 nights of Seventh Cross.
7 nights of Seventh Cross. Yeah.
He was throwing 13 damage, and Iron Knuckles with Selenka. Yeah, dude,
it's crazy.
That's
like
nuts,
it's crazy.
Man.
Like and like. I've already been talking like with my other friends on like because like I had this poll going around in the Legendary Wolf chat. I was like, all right, guys, we've got a character banned in every set recently. Who do you think's getting banned?
Yeah.
And so I had a poll, and a lot of people think like Turn Loose will get banned just because he starts so strong. And I'm like, really? I think Solinka's nuts.
Yeah, she's nuts.
And then
they'll just ban Solinka too.
2-dot. Yeah, they'll
Yeah,
ban her
yeah.
2-dot. Yeah.
And like that's the cool thing is like I love how some of these characters you can start as their second form and you can do things, and like some people are just starting as the first form.
Like
or like you look at
like Zolt, like 2-dot.
Yeah,
Like
Zolt,
he's a fine.
You can
he's
start
a fine
as a static.
Yeah. Like Zolt 2-dot's a fine character just to start with normally because he gets free stats.
And honestly, if you start with Zolt 2, you probably don't even play the 1.
Yeah, it's
like if you're much more interested in having like
more
actual regular multiples instead of like a bunch of like little free stuff.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I think there's interesting like really cool stuff too. Just because like
whoa.
Like I'm excited. Like I'm building Zolt not as on my competitive deck, but like I'm building it as a meme deck because then they're good and he gets Astro Crush, and so you build the top card of your deck.
Oh
to build
man,
the
come on, that's not the real
have.
meme. The real meme's Chaos and play Shoki on turn 1 and blow him up for 12 or something like that. That's the real meme.
I mean, you can play Shoki too. I'm just saying, like that's the free deck.
Yeah,
like
free
that's
deck,
the real way you play Shoki.
Yeah.
I'm playing Astro Crush.
I know.
And no matter what, I'm building free foundations, and they don't count towards progressive in my turn.
That's also true. That's very good. Speaking of which, the Grow deck that just won Reno played Astro Crush. So that's kind of nuts. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty excited for this, and it seems like they have a lot of good things coming out of level 99 with that board game, and like I'm surprised like Exceed may just take off now because of this set, and people who play UFS may try out Exceed if they haven't yet. And I know they have their own type of like do they have their own league and stuff like that with Exceed as well, right, Rob? I don't know.
They
you know
do.
More about it than I do.
They have like some level of like organized play that I think it's probably like fairly like grassroots, but they definitely have like an organized play thing that you can like I believe you sort of apply for, and I think it's something where you just kind of like run it at a store and like report back like results and stuff. I don't quite know like what goes into it, but I definitely know that it is an option there. And then there's some kind of like prizing either with like special cards or like alternate arts or something or like mats or there's definitely like some level of like support
because
it's a set deck, like it's not like you get like special cards that you can like put in your deck. They would just be sort of like the same cards but like alternate maybe different art. So.
See, and that's the thing as a player, like I'm a competitive player because I travel whatever, but having alternate art cards is kind of like that icing on the top where you're like, yeah, man, my deck is at max rarity, bitch. And that's what it is, dude. Like you can start.
We have the same cards, but my cards
look cooler.
Absolutely.
My cards are more expensive.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah. So we're about an hour. Again, thanks for Brad for coming on, taking an hour of his time coming on, chatting with us about everything 7 Cross, I guess. So. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks to our sponsors, Jasco, our Patreon followers. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we're recording with Ashley Fullerton, who won Worlds, our first singles female cardboard winner extravaganza, beat everyone's ass in Vegas, from what I heard.
The first Nutcracker-proof champ card.
Yeah, it's going to be fucking sweet, dude.
But it won't be out with this.
It will be out in 2 years. So as of recording today, we're recording with her tomorrow. So this episode will come out Tuesday. So that means we're recording with her today if you watch the episode when it comes out. So we're excited. I have to message her tonight to make sure she's still good for that. And then we're going to chat with Barrett's bestie, JJ, and Chris Nixon, and Rich. He's the worst player ever, Svoboda. Because he said that himself to me, because he's the worst player ever, trying to give JJ free wins and top cuts for some random reason, because he's bad. He had to be there to see it. It was hilarious, because they were yelling at each other, because they kept making play mistakes and players and singles, so it was funny. Yeah. But anywho, anyone else got anything else to say before we go? On a good night?
Thanks to my sponsor, Legendary Wolf Games. Take your game from ordinary to legendary.
There you go. We got it in. I knew we had to get that in. And like I said, have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye.